I know that what your statement that you've given to the Commission is about the experience of your late husband, and just take us through what happened in your circumstances when your husband suffered a stroke and went to the Royal Victoria Hospital's emergency department just after Christmas in 2013.
Brenton arrived at...
You probably need to bring the mic closer. Yep.
When Brenton arrived at the Royal, he was seen right away, I have to say. The stroke specialist doctor came along, and she took a medical history from me and asked other questions about what he'd been up to that day, kind of thing. But he was then taken right away for a scan, and it was very quickly up the stairs to have the scan, and then he was back down again to the cubicle. The doctor explained that the neurosurgeons would be looking at the scan, and she would tell us the outcome of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't really remember how long before she came back, but she said that there was nothing really that she could do, that there was a massive bleed into the middle of Brenton's brain, and there was nothing that she could do as the lysis doctor. So she went off then basically and said someone else will come along and speak to you. So another female doctor came along, and she explained a wee bit about the stroke. She said again that it was a massive bleed to the middle of the brain, that it would affect Brenton's decision-making capabilities, and she said, you know, he could get worse before he gets better. But I had just had that word better in my head because I just focused on that really. So then she went off kind of, but at that stage Brenton was still conscious, and although he wasn't making much conversation, if you spoke to him he could answer you. So I was asking him how he was feeling, and he said that he just kept saying, my head's thumping, my head's thumping. So I had asked the doctor at that stage if he could be given pain relief, and she said no problem. But unfortunately the pain relief didn't appear for several hours. There were different people in and out, you know, at different stages. There's an auxiliary in and out, and another male doctor came in, and each time, whenever they said what they had to say, I said again about Brenton hasn't been given any pain relief, and they said they would look into that. And it was finally then when the female doctor came back, she looked at the notes and she said, well, he's been written up for it, and I said, well, he hasn't got it, and she made sure that he got it right away then. So that was the biggest problem for me, that Brenton didn't receive any pain relief. The second thing was that the whole time he was in A&E, that he was very sick. He was vomited several times, and no one came in to see how he was doing. No one came in to check on him. You know, we were there, as I was there as his wife, and his children were there, so we had to help him up, you know, get him, you know, because you could see the signs when he was going to be sick, so we knew, so we helped him up, you know, we held a kidney dish, we cleaned him up afterwards, you know. No one came in to check him throughout that, you know. As I say, there was an auxiliary who kind of was coming in and out because his temperature was down, and they were going to put one of those foil blankets on him, but that never materialised either. But of course we were happy to do it as his family for our loved one, but my concern would be if Brenton had have been on his own, you know, what would have happened then, or anyone on their own really, you know. So that was the two main things. He also needed to go to the toilet at one stage, so again I had to go and seek assistance for that. You know, no one came to offer that kind of help.
Can I ask you a couple of questions? What time of the day did Brendan come to the hospital?
He took the stroke at 11 o'clock, and he got to the hospital, I think it was about 20 to 12. We don't live that far from the hospital.
Sorry, is that the morning or the evening?
No, sorry, at night.
Yeah. And how busy was the emergency department?
It was really, really very busy. It was jam-packed, really. There was, at the same time that Brenton was admitted, there were 4 young men who had been admitted. They'd taken drug overdoses, and so they were there. The police were everywhere. Obviously their families were there. The trolleys were stacked up outside the nurses' station, side to side, and all their families at either end of the trolley. So it was really just, as I thought, complete mayhem.
Okay. I suppose one of the things I'd like to ask you is looking back on that experience now and reflecting on it, what are the things that you think could have been done that would have made things easier or better, or if you were sitting here now with the clinicians who'd been involved and were giving them feedback, what would you say to them in terms of how things could have been handled differently?
I think really someone should have been checking on Brendan every 15 minutes, whether that's a nurse or an auxiliary, but someone should have been in to see really what was happening. And you don't really think about it at the time, but looking back on it, I think, he was I felt we were just kind of left, there's nothing we can do for this gentleman, he can't get surgery, there's nothing we can do, and I kind of felt that we were just abandoned, somebody coming in, to at least take observations, to check, if he needs to go to the toilet. And I also feel that whilst, the nature of the stroke was explained, I feel that there was one male doctor, he came in and said, the neurosurgeons have looked at the scan and there's nothing that can be done, or nothing that they can do. So we're going to bring Brenton up to the ward. And myself and my oldest son, we said to him, yes, but what's going to happen? What are you going to do then? Because I don't really know that much about strokes, so I was saying, well, that's fair enough. We understand that you're saying he's not for surgery. But what happens when he gets up to the ward? And he just kept repeating, the neurosurgeon said they can't do anything. We're bringing him up to the ward. He said that 3 times. And I felt he was getting a wee bit frustrated with us. But in hindsight, looking back, I feel that he maybe knew that my husband was dying, and I feel that we should have been told at that stage, I think we should have been brought into somewhere private. I think everything should have been explained, and even if they had said, your husband's very seriously ill and you need to prepare yourself for the worst, but no one said that. And I felt we were kind of just in a bit of a limbo, really.
And final question from me, how long did it take eventually for him to get a
up to the
place
ward
on the ward?
5.
5 hours?
5, yeah.
Marion or Paul, do you want to ask anything?
Yes, he was admitted to the stroke ward.
Sorry, just checking that he was admitted to a ward in the Royal.
Yeah.
Marion, did you have anything else?
No, I mean, everything seems to have, in terms of when your late husband had the stroke and the ambulance, he got to the hospital very quickly, and he had the scan very quickly, and really within about 20 minutes of his admission, the neurosurgeon was able to tell you that they weren't going to be able to operate. I mean, what seems to have happened after that is nobody told you what the ramifications were. It's a communication issue, isn't it?
And he didn't receive any treatment. He didn't get the pain relief, or I think the Royal are excellent at treating accident and emergencies, because Brenton was seen right away, but it's the care in between times, they don't really seem to be able to manage that.
If I'm picking this up right, it's very quick. It was communication, but it was also support, almost, I'll call it aftercare, having done that. So that it was the medication, it was the recognition that he was a very sick man, and being sick, and all of those needs weren't catered for. If I'm picking you up right, that's the other key issue. Yeah. Thank you. I'd just like, unless there's any other questions.
Just very quickly, if I
Yes.
may. Thank you very much, Claire. Really appreciate it. And you've been candid and balanced about the shortcomings. But it's also, am I right in saying that you also have given high praise for the staff on the ward, and you sent them a thank you letter?
Yes, that was for the stroke ward. When Brenton arrived up onto the stroke ward, I have to say the care that he got there was absolutely second to none. There was a stroke specialist nurse who I thanked specifically, because she looked after him from he got there until he passed away. She was fantastic, and she was the first person who said to me, I said, is Brenton likely to recover from this? This was early in the morning, and she just said, no, he's not. That was the first indication that we had that he was as ill as he was.
So the high praise is for the ward, it's not about ED. Thank you very much for your time this evening, and I'm sorry we kept you waiting.
No
Yes,
problem.
and I can only reiterate that, and thank you again. I know how difficult it must be to talk about this issue, and particularly in a public arena, and it's really very, very important for us to hear from people firsthand of their experiences. So once again, we really do appreciate what you've done, and thank you for that.